Resort job. First, I have to warn you, this story is ridiculously long. And, to be honest, it's not that big of a deal. So, only read this if you're absolutely dying of boredom. You've been warned, so let's begin. This happened when I was in my 3rd year of college. As summer break was approaching, 5 of us college friends decided to plan a trip to the beach. During the planning stage, one of my friends suggested that instead of just vacationing, we should find a job at the beach. I had no other plans for the summer, so I agreed right away. 2 of our friends, however, couldn't join us for the job because they had some kind of seminar camp to attend. In the end, 3 of us decided to work at the beach, and the other 2 would just stay at the inn where we were working and enjoy the trip. To find a place to work, the 3 of us split up and started searching online. There were a lot of job listings, many of which welcomed groups of friends. We ended up choosing an inn near a popular spot known for its lively atmosphere. We called to apply for the job, and everything went smoothly. The owner, a lady, even agreed to let our 2 other friends join us for a couple of days as long as we worked extra hard. With everything settled, we were pumped and somehow ended up heading straight to a health spa, then gathering at a friend's apartment to meticulously plan our strategies for hitting on girls once we got there. Finally, the day arrived for the 3 of us, including me, to head out to the inn. It was our first time doing a resort job, so I was pretty excited, with a mix of nervousness and anticipation. When we arrived, we found that the inn was a fairly large, 2-story guest house. It felt like a countryside grandma's house. Although it was called XX Ryokan, it was more of a guest house. It felt like it should have been called XX Lodge instead. When we called out at the entrance, a young girl with a big smile came out to greet us. That definitely boosted my spirits. Inside the inn, there were 4 guest rooms, 1 large dining hall for everyone to eat together, and 2 rooms for live-in staff, a total of 7 rooms. We were initially shown to the dining hall. After a while, the young girl came in with some barley tea for us. Her name was Misaki, and she was a local girl who grew up nearby. Accompanying her was the landlady, Makiko, a large, jovial woman with a big laugh, a really great person. If she had been younger, I might have fallen for her. There was also her husband, and together, 6 of us were going to manage this guest house. After some introductions, the landlady told us, the guest rooms are down that hallway to the right. Your sleeping quarters are at the end of the left hallway. You can put your luggage there first, and then I'll explain the rest, so take your time and relax for now. One of my friends, whom we'll call A, asked a question that had been on his mind. Aren't the guest rooms on the 2nd floor? The landlady responded with a smile, no, we're not using the 2nd floor right now. We figured it was because it wasn't peak season yet, so we didn't think much of it. We assumed they'd open it up later. After dropping off our luggage and taking in the peaceful view from our room, I felt really at ease. I thought it might be a tough job, but if I could spend the summer in such a nice place, it would be totally worth it. Plus, I was hoping for a summer romance. So our working life at the inn began. It was hard work, but everyone was so nice that it didn't feel like a burden at all. I realized that workplace relationships are everything. About a week later, one of my friends said, "Hey, we really found a great place to work, didn't we?" B, yeah, and the pay is good too. As the 2 of them were talking, I added, "Me, yeah, but the busy season is coming soon, right? It's going to get hectic." Speaking of the busy season, do you think they'll open up the 2nd floor? B, I don't think so. Isn't that where the landlady and her family live? A and I, wait, what? B, I don't know for sure, but lately, I've noticed the landlady bringing food upstairs a lot. A, I haven't seen that. Me, neither have I. B, I'm in charge of sweeping the front entrance in the evening, so I often see the landlady carrying a tray of food and heading up the stairs to the 2nd floor. We didn't find it particularly strange and just responded with, "Oh, really, and huh." A few days later, while I was cleaning the hallway, I happened to see the landlady sneaking out of a guest room. It was unusual because she didn't normally do the cleaning, Misaki did all of that. so I was a bit suspicious. I couldn't keep it to myself, so I told my friends. I then said, "Hey, I've seen that before too." Me, "Hey, seriously? Why didn't you mention it?" B, "I haven't seen it." Me, "Then stay quiet." I figured she must have had some business there, and I didn't want to create any tension by bringing it up. Me, "True." We still had almost a month left of our job, so we discussed whether to just ignore it or not. Then B made a suggestion. B, "Why don't we follow her?" A, "What do you mean, follow her? This place is so small, there's no way we wouldn't get caught." B, "Yeah, I guess." Me, "Then why did you even suggest it?" A, B, and I. Even after thinking about it, we couldn't come up with a solution. Our other two friends were supposed to join us the following week, and we thought if nothing happened, we could all have a great time. But we were guys, and the curiosity got the better of us, so we decided that if anyone saw anything suspicious, they should report it. The next night, B gathered us in the same room, looking very serious. I thought, why didn't he come to us? But reluctantly, we joined him. B, "So, you know how I said the landlady often goes upstairs? Last night, I watched until the very end. Usually, I just see her going up the stairs, but last night, I waited until she came back down." B, "She came back down after about 5 minutes." A, "So?" B, "The landlady always eats with us, right? But if she's taking food up there, it means someone's living upstairs, right?" Me, "Yeah, I guess that's true." B, "But we've never seen or heard of anyone else living there." That's suspicious, but maybe it's for a sick person or something. B, "Yeah, I thought of that too. But finishing a meal in 5 minutes? That's pretty healthy, don't you think?" I don't think you can base it on that alone." B, "But isn't it strange? You guys said to report anything suspicious, so I'm reporting it." His tone was a bit smug, which annoyed A and me, but we had to admit it was a bit creepy. "What's on the second floor?" We were all filled with that question. The next day, after finishing our usual work, A and I joined B at the front entrance to wait for the landlady. After a while, the landlady appeared, carrying a tray of food, and disappeared up the stairs to the second floor. Just so you know, the stairs to the second floor were outside, leading up from the side of the building. There was no indoor staircase that we could see. The stairs were hidden around the corner, and when she disappeared through the door, we saw B's smug look. B, "See? It's fast, right?" Me, "Yeah, it is." A, "What's up there?" B, "I don't know. Do you want to check it out?" A, "Honestly, I'm scared out of my mind right now." B, "Me too." Me, "Well, we might as well go see." So we made our way to the door leading to the second floor. A, "Is it locked?" Ignoring A's concern, I turned the doorknob, and it opened easily. Click. The door opened slightly, just enough for B to peek inside. B, "Ugh." B grimaced and pinched his nose. A, "What's wrong?" B, "Doesn't it smell?" A, and I couldn't smell anything at first, but B was clearly reacting to something. Are you messing with us?" I was upset because he was already on edge, but B was dead serious. B, "No, I'm serious. You don't smell it? If you open the door more, you'll notice." I took a deep breath and pushed the door open further. A warm, stale air rushed out, carrying with it a musty, rotten odor. Me, "Is it the dust?" B, "Wait, the smell is gone." Stop messing around. I swear I'm leaving you behind if anything happens. I cursed under his breath, still on edge. B, "No, I'm serious. It smelled like rotting food." Whatever, it's your imagination. While the two of them bickered, I noticed something. The hallway was extremely narrow, just wide enough for one person. There was no light, and only a faint glow from outside provided any illumination. At the end of the hallway, I could see another door. Me, "If we go up, it'll have to be one at a time." A. No way. B. You're going? Me. I'm curious, and if I don't go now, I'll end up coming back alone in the middle of the night, and that's definitely a death flag. So I'm going now. It was a strange reason, but given my curiosity, it seemed better to check it out while A and B were there. Still, my fear was just as strong. We agreed that I would go up alone, but if anything happened, they had to warn me immediately, no running away. And they had to be careful not to shout unless it was a real emergency. With that, I slowly began to climb the stairs. The inside was dimly lit, with only a faint glow filtering in from outside. I cautiously took one step at a time, but halfway up, I heard a faint creak sound. I turned around to check on A and B, who were watching me closely, giving me a thumbs up to signal everything was fine. I nodded slightly and faced the second floor again. I reassured myself that it was just an old house and kept climbing, but as I got higher, curiosity and fear began to fight for control. The higher I went, the darker it got, and my imagination started running wild. Creak, creak. The sound grew louder, and I began to feel like I was stepping on something. I thought it might be bugs, and a chill ran down my spine. But nothing moved, and it was too dark to see. I lost count of how many times I looked back, but eventually, I reached the top. The smell hit me hard, and I gagged. Ugh. It was a stench, like rotting food mixed with sewage. I looked around and saw a pile of rotten food in the corner of the landing. Flies were swarming around it, and I couldn't believe I hadn't noticed it earlier. In a semi-panic, I also noticed something else. The door at the end of the hallway was nailed shut with numerous charms plastered all over it. The door frame was wrapped in thin ropes that crisscrossed like spiderwebs. I had never seen charms in real life before, but it was clear that something was being sealed inside. It was obvious that something was locked away in there. For the first time, I realized I had made a huge mistake. I need to get out of here, I thought, and as I turned to leave, I suddenly heard a scratching sound coming from behind the door. It was followed by an irregular breathing noise. My heart nearly stopped. Is there someone in there? Who is it? My mind raced. At that moment, I was acting more scared than any side character in a horror movie. I knew I should just leave without looking back, but it was impossible. I was frozen in place, unable to move or even turn around. My eyes darted around, and sweat poured down my back. The scratching sound continued, interspersed with the breathing, until suddenly, everything went silent. For a split second, it was dead quiet, and then there was a loud bang followed by more scratching. This time, it was coming from above me. Whatever had been behind the door had moved to the ceiling in an instant. My legs began to shake, and I thought I was going to die. In my mind, I kept screaming for help. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw something move. I hesitated to look, but when I finally did, I saw A and B frantically waving and shouting from below, breaking me out of my paralysis. I bolted down the stairs, nearly falling in my haste. Later, they told me that I had run down with my eyes closed, skipping steps as I went. I didn't remember much after that, but I know I ran past A and B and straight to our room. My memory is hazy, likely because of the fear. When A and B came back to the room, they asked if I was okay and what had happened. I couldn't answer. The sounds I had heard were still ringing in my ears, and I was terrified to recall them. Then he asked me cautiously, "Hey, what were you eating up there?" I didn't understand the question, so I asked him to repeat it. I then said something unbelievable. "Hey, you squatted down right after you reached the top, right? B and I were straining our eyes to see what you were doing, but you seemed to be frantically eating something, stuffing it into your mouth." B, "Yeah, and that." A and B both stared at my chest. I looked down and saw that my shirt was covered in filth. A rotten food smell wafted from it, and I rushed to the bathroom to vomit. I couldn't understand what had happened. I remembered everything clearly, the fear and the terrifying experience, but I had no memory of squatting or eating that rotten food. Yet, my shirt was stained with it, and upon closer inspection, my hands had remnants of the filth as well. I felt like I was going insane. A and B, seeing how shaken I was, asked me to tell them what had happened. I was scared out of my mind, but I knew it would be better to share it with them than to keep it to myself, so I recounted everything I had experienced at the top of the stairs. A and B listened intently, nodding as I spoke, even though what I said didn't match what they had seen. I felt a wave of relief just from having them listen. Then I noticed that my feet were stinging. I looked down and saw that they were covered in tiny cuts, with small fragments of plastic embedded in them, some red, some black and white. As I stared at them, B picked up one of the fragments. "B, what's this?" He examined it, then suddenly gasped and dropped it. "Ah, what is it?" "B, look closely, isn't it a nail?" We all froze. My mind went back to the sound I had heard earlier. Oh, that scratching sound, it was from nails. I didn't know why, but that thought made sense to me. The creak sounds I had heard while climbing the stairs and the sensation of stepping on something had been caused by those nails scattered all over the floor. And those nails had belonged to something desperately trying to claw its way through the walls. I must have injured myself on those nails while trying to escape. But at that point, none of that mattered anymore. The only thing that was clear was that we couldn't stay there any longer. I told A and B. "Me, we can't keep working here." A, "Yeah, I know." B, "I was thinking the same thing." Me, "Let's tell the landlady tomorrow." A, "Are we really going to tell her?" Me, "We have to. We owe her that much." B, "But isn't the landlady the most suspicious person in all of this? I don't want to see how she reacts if we tell her we went up there." Me, "Idiot. We're not going to say that. We'll just quit normally." A, "Yeah, that's better." So that night, we packed our bags. The fear was so overwhelming that, despite being grown men, we pushed 2 futons together and slept huddled up like sardines. None of us slept soundly. The next morning, we woke up in silence. Nobody spoke much. Suddenly, B's alarm went off, making him jump. He had been terrified since the night before. B was a really kind guy, and the previous night, he had apologized to me. "B, sorry. I know you went through way more than I did, and yet here I am, so scared. I'm really sorry I didn't come to help you." That was enough to make me tear up. But then I started thinking, what did he mean by more than I did? I was the one who had the terrifying experience, and A and B were just watching from below. Was it my frantic descent down the stairs that scared him? Or was it the story I told that frightened him? I realized that my fear was making me overly sensitive to everything. The best thing we could do was leave and try to enjoy the rest of the summer vacation together. But B was still incredibly on edge. He reacted to every sound we made and kept staring at my injured feet. Seeing how different B was acting, asked him, "Hey, are you okay? You're not going crazy from lack of sleep, are you?" He placed a hand on B's shoulder, and B suddenly shouted, "B, shut up." He violently shook off A's hand. A and I were stunned into silence. Me, "What's going on?" I was too shocked to speak. "B, you ask if I'm okay? How could I be okay? Both I and my name nearly died, and you're pretending to care without even understanding anything." He glared at A as he shouted. I had no idea what he was talking about. What did he mean by nearly died? It wasn't just my story that had scared him. A and B were usually the closest in our group, with A often teasing B, and B always going along with it without getting angry. So seeing B lash out at A like this was shocking. I was visibly shaken. Confused, I asked B. "Me, what do you mean by nearly died? You were down here the whole time." B, "Yeah, I was. I was watching the whole time." After a brief pause, he added, "B, I'm still watching." Me, "Still watching? Watching what?" I couldn't understand any of it, but I started to think B had lost his mind. Maybe he had been possessed by something. B, his voice trembling but firm, started talking again. B, I was down there, but I was watching the whole time. Me, watching me go up the stairs, right? B, no, well, at first, yes. But then I started seeing something else. Me, yeah? To be honest, I didn't want to hear it. But B looked like he was about to break under the weight of what he was holding inside, just like I had the night before. Remembering how A and B had listened to my story and how much that had saved me, I felt it was my duty to listen to him now. Me, what did you see? B was silent for a moment before he replied. B, shadows. I think. Me, shadows? B, yeah. At first, I thought it was just your shadow. But even while you were squatting down and eating that rotten food, the shadow kept moving. I saw your shadow shrinking as you crouched, and our shadows were at our feet. B, but there were other shadows. B, 3, no, maybe 4. I felt chills run down my spine. I desperately hoped B was joking, but he was dead serious. There was no hint of humor in his expression, only fear. Me, but I was the only one up there. B, I know. Me, and there's no way 4 or 5 people could fit in that tiny space and move around. The staircase was only wide enough for one person. B, they weren't people. I could tell that much. Me. B, and there's no way a person could do what they did. B added quietly. Me, what do you mean? B, they were all clinging to the walls. Me, huh? B, like spiders. They were all clinging to the walls and ceiling, moving around. And then, B started hyperventilating as he recalled what he had seen. Me, calm down. Take deep breaths. You're safe, we're all here. B eventually calmed down and continued talking. B, they weren't human. I mean, they used to be, but they weren't anymore. In their shape, it was human, but also not human. I thought I understood what B was trying to say. Me, so, there were human-shaped things clinging to the walls? B nodded silently. My heart pounded in my chest. I realized that what B had seen wasn't just shadows. It didn't make sense for shadows to move across the walls and ceiling. Even if they were shadows, something must have been casting them. Even an idiot like me could figure that out. Which meant that while I was there, those things had been crawling around me, and I had been eating the rotten food without realizing it. And that scratching sound, the breathing, it wasn't coming from the other side of the wall, it was right there with me. The fear made my head spin. Whether B noticed my growing terror or not, he turned to A and said, B, sorry, I lost my temper earlier. I shouldn't have. No, it's fine. I should be the one apologizing. I quickly apologized in return. There was an awkward silence, but I was too focused on trying to stay calm. I kept taking deep breaths. Then A spoke up. Hey, you said earlier that you're still watching? B answered before A could finish. B, oh, sorry. That was just me freaking out. I'm okay now. But B's smile was forced. It was clear he was struggling to hold it together. For some reason, I vividly remember the way the skin under B's eyes twitched as he smiled. It's something that happens to some people, but when someone who's forcing a smile does it, it's really unsettling. After that, and I didn't ask any more questions. Maybe it was cowardly, but we were too scared to push for answers. Think about it, B had shared so much, but there was still something he was holding back. I couldn't handle knowing what it was. There was a brief silence before Masaki came to the hall and called us for breakfast. It seemed a lot of time had passed while we were talking. To be honest, none of us had any appetite. But we didn't want to raise any suspicion, so we reluctantly went to eat. I dragged myself to my feet and said to the others, Me, we should tell her as soon as we're done eating. A, yeah. B, I'm not hungry. Could you lend me your laptop? I need to look something up. Sure, but you should eat. B, I need to check on something. We don't have much time. Could you guys go ahead? Me, got it. I'll ask Misaki to make some rice balls for you. B, thanks. My laptop's in my bag. Feel free to use it. The internet's connected. With that, A and I went to the dining hall. Looking back, it seems strange to have eaten breakfast on the day we were planning to quit, but we did it anyway. When we got there, the landlady greeted us with a beaming smile, asking how we slept, something she hadn't done since our first day. Given what had happened the night before, it felt eerie. I was so freaked out that I froze in place, but I replied while smacking me on the back to get me moving. A, yes, sorry we're late. I was surprised to have A, who usually got scared first, come to my rescue like that. We explained that B was feeling unwell and was still in bed. I asked Misaki if she could make some rice balls for him, and she agreed, looking concerned. Misaki, sure. But maybe Bikuin should rest today. A and I sat down without saying much more. We couldn't tell her we were quitting, after all. Throughout breakfast, the landlady kept staring at me with a creepy smile on her face. It was so unsettling that I could barely eat. Misaki and her husband also seemed to notice something was off, as they kept glancing between the landlady and me. O was frozen, too. We quickly finished eating and headed back to our room to get B so we could talk to the landlady. On our way back, we heard B talking on the phone. We didn't want to interrupt, so we waited. B, yes, I need it to be today. Yes, thank you so much. Yes, we'll definitely be there. He seemed to be making plans to go somewhere immediately after we left. A and I didn't ask any questions and just took him to the dining hall. When we got there, Misaki was cleaning up after breakfast, but the landlady wasn't around. I thought she might be up there again, bringing food to the second floor. The image of her disappearing up the stairs flashed through my mind. She must have been adding more food to that pile of rotten food I saw. I wondered why she was doing that, but quickly reminded myself that it didn't matter. We were leaving today, and I needed to forget about it. I asked Misaki where the landlady was. Misaki, she's probably watering the flowers. She'll be back soon. Misaki then turned to B with a sad look and said, Bikuin, I'll make those rice balls for you right away, before heading to the kitchen. Misaki, if nothing had happened, maybe I would have had a summer romance with her. We waited for the landlady to return. When she did, she saw us just sitting there and asked, "What's wrong with you guys?" with a puzzled look. I steeled myself and began. "Me, landlady, we need to talk. Could we have a moment?" The landlady looked at us for a while, then sat down in front of us and asked, "What is it? You all look so serious." Me, I know this is sudden, but we'd like to quit today. A and B immediately followed up with, "Please," and bowed their heads. The landlady remained expressionless for a moment. The lack of reaction was unnerving, as if she had anticipated this. Finally, she spoke, "I see. Well, there's no helping it, I guess." She then smiled and started talking about our pay and cleaning up the room before we leave, as if nothing was wrong. The conversation went smoothly, which relieved us all. But deep down, something felt off. With the decision made, we quickly got to work. Our bags were already packed, so all that was left was to clean our room. The room wasn't too dirty since we had spent most of our time working or playing at the beach. An hour later, we were ready to go, so we returned to the dining hall to say our goodbyes. The landlady, her husband, and Misaki, who looked genuinely sad, were there. We all knelt down and said, "Me, thank you for everything, even though it was a short time. We apologize for quitting so suddenly." All three of us bowed deeply. The landlady stood up, approached us, and said, "Thank you too, even though it was short. Here, it's not much." She handed us each a small envelope and a small drawstring pouch. The envelopes were heavier than I expected, while the pouches were very light. Misaki then came over with tears in her eyes and handed us the rice balls she had made. "Misaki, take care, everyone." "Stop it, Misaki, you're going to make me cry." After surviving the horrors of the previous night, I was now feeling emotional. Despite everything, we had been well taken care of, and leaving was bittersweet. After our farewells, we were ready to go. We had arrived by bus, but B had arranged for a taxi to take us back. The husband offered to drive us to the station, but B declined and asked Masaki to call a taxi. When the taxi arrived, the landlady, her husband, and Masaki all came out to see us off. It probably looked like a heartfelt goodbye to any onlookers, but we were really just running away. As I got into the taxi, I glanced back at the stairs leading to the second floor. For a moment, it seemed like the door was slightly ajar, and I quickly turned away. We got into the taxi, and the driver asked where we wanted to go. As the taxi pulled away, B suddenly asked the driver to change the destination. He handed the driver a note with the new address. "Driver, are you sure? That's pretty far." B, "Yes, I'm sure." B then turned to A and me in the back seat and said, "B, there's somewhere we need to go. You guys are coming with me." And I exchanged glances, thinking the same thing. Where are we going? But after seeing how B had been acting that morning, we were too afraid to ask. After driving for a while, the driver asked us, "Driver, is that truck following us someone you know?" We looked back and saw a small truck tailing us closely. The husband was driving, waving at us. We thought we must have forgotten something, so we asked the driver to pull over. The husband stopped behind us, got out of the truck, and came over to say, "You can't go back just yet." B, "I'm not going back. Not in this state." It was like B and the husband were having a conversation we weren't a part of. Me, "Wait, what's going on?" I was completely lost, so I just asked outright. The husband turned to me, looking me straight in the eye, and said, "Husband, you went up there, didn't you?" My heart skipped a beat. How does he know? I was scared out of my mind. Not because of ghosts, but because I realized I had done something terrible. All I could manage was a yes. The husband sighed and said, "Husband, if you go back now, you'll be taken for sure." "Why did you have to go up there?" "Well, I guess it's my fault for not telling you." "Taken? What does that mean?" I thought this nightmare was supposed to end as soon as we left. I glanced at A, who was looking at me with wide eyes. I felt even more uneasy and turned to B, who said, "B, it's okay. We're going to get cleansed. That's why I made those plans." Cleansed? Am I possessed? Am I going to die? Is that why I went up there? If he thought it was so dangerous, why didn't he warn me? I was so terrified that I was looking for someone to blame. The husband cut in before I could spiral further. "Husband, cleansed, huh?" B, "Yes." "Husband, can you see them?" B, A, "Wait, see them?" B, "Sorry, but can we talk about this later?" I snapped and grabbed B. Me, "Enough. What's going on?" The husband stepped in. "Husband, hey, calm down. You should be thanking B. He's been helping you this whole time." But isn't there more he could tell us?" "Husband, you two can't see them. B is the one in the most danger." A and I both stared at B, who looked back at us with a pained expression. Me, "Why B? I'm the one who went up there." "Husband, I know. But you didn't see them, did you?" Me, "What do you mean by see them?" "Husband, I don't know." Me, "What the hell?" I was frustrated by his vague answers. "Husband, I only know that it's pitch black." "Husband, but..." He turned to B. "Husband, even if you get cleansed, I don't think it'll help." B looked at him suspiciously. B, "Why not?" "Husband, because it's happened before." "But I can't say more." B, "But we have to try, right?" Husband, "Yes, that's true." B, "Then let's go." Husband, "And if it doesn't work, what will you do?" B, "Husband, once you start seeing them, things move fast." I didn't understand what he meant by fast, but after he said that, B collapsed, crying silently. And I could only stand there, helpless. The taxi driver, noticing something was wrong, rolled down the window and asked, "Driver, are you guys okay?" None of us could answer. B was lying on the ground, crying uncontrollably. The husband spoke to the driver. "Husband, sorry for the trouble, but can you let them out here?" The driver looked confused and glanced at us. The husband then turned back to B and said, "Husband, do you know why I followed you? There's someone who knows what's going on. I'm going to take you to them. I've already arranged it. They said to come immediately." "Husband, we don't have time. Trust me." B, still shaking, replied in a strained voice, "B, please, help me." His voice was barely a whisper. It wasn't the cry of a grown man, but that of a scared child. It was the only time I ever saw B cry like that. His words made me realize that B had been carrying an enormous burden all by himself since the night before. It was heart-wrenching to see. After hearing B's plea, I told the driver, "Me, we're getting out here. How much do we owe you?" We then got into the husband's truck, with A and me in the back. The ride was incredibly uncomfortable. The husband drove recklessly, despite us being in the open bed of the truck. I let out a small, panicked scream, but I ignored it. I don't remember how long we drove because my tailbone hurt so much that I couldn't think about anything else. When we arrived, we were at a regular-looking house with a small shrine next to it, leading to some stone steps. The husband led us into the house, rang the doorbell, and told us, "Only answer the questions you're asked. Don't say anything unnecessary. Husband, you guys have a foul mouth, so watch it." I thought, he's one to talk. After a short wait, a woman in her 20s with a large mole on her forehead came out and led us to a room in the house. Inside, there was a monk, an older man, and an even older man sitting on tatami mats. As soon as we entered the room, the older man muttered, "Such a malevolent presence. Husband, sit down." At the husband's command, we sat across from the monk, with the husband sitting beside us. The elderly man spoke first. "Elder, so, these are the 3 kids from the XXN?" Husband, "Yes, this is all of them. But this one here, B, can already see them." At this, the monk and the older man exchanged glances. The monk then asked, "Monk, husband, is this the boy who went to the hall?" Husband, "No. The one who actually went is this one, my name." Monk, "I see." Husband, "B was just watching from below." Monk, "I see." After a brief pause, the monk asked B, "Monk, have you had experiences like this before?" B, "Experiences like this?" Monk, "Yes, experiences where you see spirits or ghosts." B, "No, never." Monk, "I see. It's strange indeed." B, Am I going to die?" B's hands were trembling on his knees as he asked. The monk replied calmly, "Monk, yes. If this continues, you'll surely be taken." B was stunned into silence, staring down at the tatami mat. Shocked by the monk's words, interjected, Taken? What do you mean?" "Monk, I mean that you'll be possessed and lose your life." Even with the explanation, we couldn't understand what that meant, what would be taken and by what. The monk continued, "Monk, it's natural that you don't understand. My name, when you went to the hall, did you feel anything unusual?" The monk referred to the second floor of the inn as the hall. I answered, "Me, I heard noises and strange breathing. There were also charms stuck all over the door on the second floor." Monk, "I see. You likely heard the presence of something not human. Normally, people aren't supposed to sense those things. They exist without anyone noticing, silently." With that, the monk slowly stood up. "Monk, B, can you see them now?" B, "No, but I can hear scratching against the wall." Monk, "They can't enter here. I've set up several barriers. They're desperately trying to break through." Monk, "However, we can't stay here forever. We'll leave now and head to the Ando." B, once you step outside, they'll appear again. Monk, you'll likely suffer again, but I promise we'll save you. Stay strong and follow me. B nodded shakily. The monk led us out of the house and up the stone steps. The husband stayed behind, and as we left, I felt a pang of anxiety. We walked together, A and I flanking B to protect him as we climbed the steps. At the top, we saw a large temple, but the monk led us around it to a smaller shrine further up. As we approached, the monk asked B, "Monk, how are you feeling now?" B, they're walking on two legs, following us, always staring at us. Monk, I see. They've started walking. They must be thrilled that you noticed them. We don't have much time. Let's hurry. We climbed the remaining steps, reaching a small hut behind the shrine. The monk explained that we would spend the night inside to cleanse B of the spirits. The hut was dark, with no lights inside. We were told we couldn't speak, eat, or sleep until dawn. Even our phones had to be turned off. Monk, if you need to relieve yourselves, use this bag. He handed us a strange cloth bag, assuring us that no liquid would leak out. It was hard to believe, but we had no choice. The monk then had us drink water from a bamboo tube, and he sprayed us with some of it. We entered the dark hut, and the monk warned us. Monk, do not open this door. We'll be in the main hall. No one will come here tonight. Monk, and do not speak to anyone on the other side of the walls. Do not reveal your location. Monk, please follow these rules carefully. With those final instructions, the monk closed the door and left us alone in the darkness. The air inside was cool, and although the thought of spending a night without food or drink was daunting, I felt like we could manage. The hut was old, with gaps in the walls that let in slivers of light. We could barely see each other's faces in the faint daylight. For a while, we sat in silence, occasionally exchanging glances, but the tension made it hard to think of anything to say. As time passed, it pulled out a piece of paper and a pen he had hidden in his pocket. It was the wrapper from a pack of gum, the only thing he could think to use. I wrote something and handed it to me. Is everyone okay? I replied, trying to write as small as possible to save space. I'm okay for now. What about B? B, I'm okay too. I can't see or hear anything. I took the paper back and wrote, we have 4 pieces of gum left. Let's write small. We nodded in agreement, and I handed the pen and paper back to me. Me, what time is it? A, don't know. B, maybe around 5? A, we got here around 1. Me, then it's probably around 4. B, only 3 hours? A, feels like forever. Despite the situation, we started writing down random thoughts to pass the time. It wasn't much, but it helped distract us from the fear. At one point, A wrote, "Ah, your writing is too big." I apologized through gestures. I smiled, then handed the pen and paper to me again. Me, I'm hungry. B, why? A, yeah, me too. We continued to write, talking about what we would do when we got home, what we were looking forward to, and trying to lighten the mood. But B eventually wrote, B, I'm going to follow the monk's advice no matter what. I don't want to die. We both stared at those words. I had never seriously thought about death before, and hearing B say it so earnestly was a shock. It was clear that he was truly scared for his life. I looked him in the eye and nodded, showing my support. After that, we sat in silence, listening to the cicadas outside, the only sound breaking the quiet. But soon, I began to hear something else, a faint, irregular breathing. I froze, realizing it was the same breathing I had heard the night before. I glanced at B. He didn't seem to notice it yet. Did he not hear it? Had he never heard it before? Or was he just not aware of it yet? My mind raced, trying to make sense of the situation. B must have sensed my tension because he started looking around, trying to figure out what was happening. Then his gaze locked onto something behind me. His eyes widened, and he stared intently at whatever was behind me. I noticed B's reaction and looked in the same direction, but he couldn't see anything. I was too scared to turn around. The breathing grew louder, and I could sense something was there, just a few feet away, but I couldn't bring myself to look. The hut was completely dark now, and the fear was paralyzing. The breathing continued, and then I heard a dragging sound, like something being pulled along the ground outside the hut. A grabbed my arm, his hand shaking. The sound circled the hut, and the breathing became more erratic. It was as if something was slowly moving around us, searching for a way in. My heart raced, and I clenched my teeth to stop them from chattering. I wanted to scream, but I knew I couldn't. I wanted to run, but there was nowhere to go. The sound eventually stopped, leaving us in suffocating silence. We sat there in the dark, too afraid to move or speak. I couldn't tell if the thing was still out there or if it had left. I couldn't even tell how much time had passed. It felt like hours, but it could have been minutes. I was starting to lose hope when I noticed a faint light coming through a crack in the wall. It was the moonlight. I must have noticed it too because he started pulling us toward it. The light was weak, but it was enough to give us a sense of where we were. As we moved closer to the light, I could finally see A's hand holding B's arm. B was trembling, his face pale and wet with sweat. We sat in a circle around the light, drawing comfort from being able to see each other. For a while, we sat there, holding hands and trying to calm down. The silence was comforting, and the moonlight made the darkness less terrifying. We stayed like that for what felt like hours, until A suddenly stood up and moved away from us. I watched as he pulled out the cloth bag the monk had given him and walked to the corner of the hut. I realized what he was about to do and couldn't help but smile a little. It was such a ridiculous situation that, despite everything, I found it funny. Just as they finished and returned to us, we heard a voice outside the door. Voice, Bikuin. It was a soft, familiar voice, but it made my blood run cold. It was Misaki's voice. B squeezed my hand tighter. Voice, Bikuin, I made you some rice balls. There was no emotion in the voice, no warmth. It was as if a machine was speaking. There was a long pause, and then the voice came again. Voice, Bikuin. Then, suddenly, it started repeating the same phrases over and over. Voice, Bikuin, I made you some rice balls. Voice, welcome. Voice, Bikuin. Voice, welcome. The repetition was unnerving. It was Misaki's voice, but it was terrifying. The monk had said that no one would come to the hut tonight, so whatever was outside wasn't Misaki. A return to our side, and we all stared at the door in fear. The voice kept repeating, and then the door started to rattle as if something was trying to force it open. I panicked. If the door opened, we were done for. I thought about running, but I had no idea where to go. The voice continued, and then it started banging against the door. The voice kept repeating the same phrases in that emotionless tone. The banging stopped, and I heard the sound of something dragging along the wall again. It was moving around the hut, slowly, deliberately. I was terrified. What was it doing? Then I realized that there was a crack in the wall, right where the sound was headed. My heart raced as I thought, what if it sees us? What if we see it? I couldn't take it anymore and pulled A and B away from the wall toward the center of the hut. We huddled together, trying to stay as quiet as possible. My mind was racing, and I could barely think straight. The dragging sound grew louder as it approached the crack. I bit down on my finger to keep from making any noise. I had to keep us hidden. Then, through the crack, I saw it. It was the face of whatever was outside. Its skin was pitch black, and its eyes were stark white. The sound I had thought was banging was actually it slamming its head against the wall. It would rear its head back, out of view, and then slam it against the wall again. It kept doing this, its white eyes rolling back each time, as if it were searching for something. I was frozen in fear, unable to look away. It was like something out of a nightmare. Eventually, it moved past the crack, continuing around the hut. I could hear it muttering the same phrases, its voice muffled by the wall. The banging grew fainter, and then it was gone. I didn't know how long it had been since the thing had left, but none of us moved. We were too scared to do anything. The tension in the air was unbearable. It wasn't until it gently tugged my arm that I snapped out of it. "Hey, let's go back to the light." I nodded weakly, and we slowly made our way back to the spot where the moonlight filtered in. There, in the dim light, I could see B's face. He was crying, silently, tears streaming down his cheeks. We sat down together, still holding hands, and waited for the morning. It felt like forever before the first light of dawn began to filter into the hut. Even when the sun rose, we couldn't bring ourselves to move. We were too exhausted, too drained to do anything but sit there, staring at the walls. When we finally heard footsteps approaching the hut, we tensed up again. The footsteps stopped outside, and the door creaked open. It was the monk. He looked at us and, for the first time, I saw tears in his eyes. "Monk, you did well. You've survived." His voice was full of relief. I collapsed, unable to stand, and cried like a child. The monk came inside and hugged each of us, whispering words of comfort. The smell of incense clung to his robes, and it felt like a lifeline, a reminder that we were alive, that we had made it through the night. After that, the monk and an older man helped me to my feet, and we walked back to the house where we had started. As we passed the temple, we heard a scream, a low, guttural sound that rose to a high-pitched wail. Al leaned over to me and whispered, wasn't that the landlady's voice?" I wasn't sure, but it did sound like her. I was too exhausted to care. I just wanted to get inside the house and rest. When we got there, the woman with the mole on her forehead was waiting for us. "Woman, you three should take a bath right away." She looked at us with a mix of pity and disgust. It wasn't surprising, we must have looked and smelled awful. We followed her instructions, and the three of us took a bath together. None of us wanted to be alone after what we'd been through. After our bath, we were taken to a room with 3 futons laid out. We were told to rest, and we didn't need to be told twice. As I lay down, I thought about how we needed to call our friends and let them know that the trip was off. They had no idea what we'd just been through. Before I drifted off to sleep, I turned to B and asked, "B, you don't see anything now, right?" B, "No, nothing. We're safe. Thanks, man." Hearing those words, I felt a sense of relief wash over me. We had made it through the night, and we were still alive. That was all that mattered. We slept like the dead. When we woke up, the monk explained everything to us, the truth about what had happened, the human horrors behind the supernatural events, and the strength of belief that had caused all of this. It was a lot to take in, and it made us realize that we weren't out of danger yet. The things B had seen, the things I had heard, and the things I had experienced, it was all part of a terrifying reality we were only beginning to understand. Thank you for reading this far. I know this was a long story, but I wanted to share it as it was. There's more to the story, but I'll leave it here for now.